Out of all of the possible options of entertainment, the sports set themselves apart thanks to one reason: rivalries. Every single sport has its great rivalries and has always had them. Real Madrid Barcelona with Cristiano Ronaldo versus Messi, Yankees Red Sox with Derek Jeter versus David Ortiz, the trifecta of Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer, LeBron James versus Stephen Curry, or the Lakers versus the Celtics with Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird, or even the generational streaks of different racers like Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel against the generational consistency of people such as Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher. And every single sport, regardless of it being individual, being a team sport, or even a sport in which the sportsman or sportswoman is not the one that is doing all of the effort, every single one of them has been marked by the rivalries. And in a sport like horse racing, is not different. Musume was a franchise that managed to turn overnight into a worldwide phenomenon. And a great part of it is thanks to the fantastic thing that they have created with the rivalries and the rivals of the main protagonists. From the light-hearted characters like El Condor Pasa to a more sad yet realistic approach with characters like Rai Shower, or even the just straight-up cool factor in characters like Tamamo Cross, Musume is a franchise that lives and dies thanks to those rivalries. Of course, a lot of their stories would be great regardless, but how much Auriga would have actually shined if she didn't have to pass first against the monster that is Tamamo Cross? Or how heartwarming would be the story of Kitasan Black if she didn't have to face her best friend Satono Daimon? This franchise, even if it would still be probably good, would not be nearly as iconic. And as such, I decided to rank every single rival that appears in the Uma Musume franchise as a character in the anime or the manga. The reason why I'm mentioning specifically those two is because if I went through the game, I would have to go for basically every character in different iterations of the character, which would be like 700 at the very least. So no thank you. Now that still doesn't tell me that this is not gonna be a long list. How are you gonna set apart characters that are just throwaway rivals that appear in exactly one race as fodder and nothing else, from characters that are actually consistent threats throughout the entirety of their respective season or their respective manga? And as such, I decided to put two rules to which characters are gonna apply. Every single character that appears on this list has to follow one of the two rules. There's only one minor exception, but it's not exactly an exception, and we're gonna talk about it once we reach it. However, the two rules are gonna be the following. The first one is that a character has to be a rival for multiple races while being the main focus or the main rival of a race at least once. With this rule, I'm trying to make sure that there's not any character that just doesn't deserve to be here. As much as I would like to talk about the sneaky yet objectively important supporting role of characters like Lord Royale or even King Halo, these characters are not important enough in the anime for me to justify putting them in this type of list. And that's why I decided to put it at least being the main rival once. And the second option is that they are the main rival in the final race of their respective season or their respective manga. Because the characters that usually are the main rivals in the final arc of the entire show are unable to appear in anything else, it would be unfair to put them and say that they are not worthy to be mentioned as rivals just because they appear once. So I decided that if a character is the final thread of the last race of the last chapter of that season, I think that is worth putting it in. And I would add once again that I'm not gonna count anything related with the video game and that this is a personal list. If your list looks different because you use a different parameters to rank them, or maybe simply because you liked a certain aspect about an individual rival more than others, I would not blame you. This is a personal list, yet is the one that I'm doing. And as such, I'm gonna make it just like I want to do it. So this is gonna be my personal list ranking every single main rival in the Uma Musume franchise. And with all of those things out of the way, let's start with Out of all of the characters that appear in a main series of the Uma Musume franchise, the one that I consider to be the weakest is Duramente. I mean, do you blame me? Duramente is this force of nature type of character. She is extremely powerful the first time that we see her. She is the main threat of the early parts of the third season of the original Uma Musume Pretty Derby, and as such, she is the first big rival that we see of Kitasan Black. Here's the thing. She does basically nothing. The thing with Duramente is very boring. She appears in the first two races of the Triple Crown, she wins both of them, and then she gets injured, and there is where Kitasan Black finally starts moving forward. And then she comes back for like one race in which both Kitasan Black and her face each other, and both of them lose, and that's it. That's literally it. She does basically nothing to push Kitasan Black forward because Kitasan Black starts pushing forward after she retires, basically. So she quite literally does nothing, and the fact that she is basically non-existent as a secondary character doesn't help either. I'm not fully counting the things that they do outside of races, otherwise they would be just a remake in a certain way of my favorite characters. I'm trying to go more into the pure rival type of stuff, but even then, it's still extremely weak, and the fact that she does nothing to enhance the experience doesn't help her case at all. Now this spot is gonna be basically a three-way tie with just small technicalities that are making one character be slightly higher than the others. And in this case is all three the main rivals of the final race of Uma Musume Pre-Derby Season 1, Season 2, and Uma Musume Cinderella Gray, the manga, with all Broy, also known as Manju, Biwa Hayahide, and Mejiro Ryan. All three of them are here basically for the exact same reason. They are kinda rivals that are just there to put the protagonist in the spotlight. They are supposed to be the strong character to beat, yet they are not important at all because they appear only in one race. Now, every single one of these are gonna be slightly higher or lower depending on individual technicalities. The lowest one of them all is gonna be Mejiro Ryan because she doesn't feel threatening at all. She doesn't feel at all like a character that is the one to beat. It's just that she just so happened to be the second place in the last race of the original Cinderella Gray, so they had to put her on the spotlight a little bit. Then we have Biwa Hayahide that is slightly higher because we see multiple instances of her being somewhat of a rival, not only as a final rival of Tokai Teijin Season 2, but also she appears a little bit in Star Blossom, and as such, she has a little bit more of the spotlight to try to shine. That doesn't give any strong argument towards her, but she is slightly higher than Ryan. And the one that is above both of them is Broy, simply because she actually feels threatening the first time that we see her. The first time that we see her is when she is the rival of El Condor Pasa in the Grand Prix of the Arc de Triomphe. I do not know if I pronounced that correctly. I hope that there's not a French person there hoping to kill me right now. And there she actually wins comfortably, and as such makes us actually see her as a legitimate threat. A character that effortlessly won against El Condor that just so happened to tie in the last time that we see her against the protagonist of the first season. Technically in real life that doesn't happen, but that is beyond the point. All three of them are just sadly the product of them being the rivals of the most important point in the career of a specific character, or the last moment of a career of a specific character. And why I even decided to make a technicality if I was gonna put them so low regardless, and all of them combined? Well, simply because all of them are better than Duramente. That's quite literally it. The next spot in the list goes to El Condor Pasa. She is a very very cool character. She is quite energetic, she is a very happy type of character, and very cheerful, and everyone adores her. But we are not talking about the character. We are talking about her as a rival. And as a rival, she is kinda weak. In real life, El Contrapasa never beat it Special Week. And as such, putting her as one of the rivals to beat was an odd decision from the get-go. And as such, they had to make this weird justification in which, in the first time, and for the first time ever, a race ended in a draw. Something that did not happen in real life, and if I'm not mistaken, is to this point the only race in the whole franchise that is based on real life but doesn't have the real life ending. And if your basically only full true appearance is like that, then you know that you have an issue. She also appears again in multiple other instances, more of a secondary threat, or being the main rival of a specific race, and as such, she kinda qualifies, but just barely. And as I'm saying, she is a cool character, and I would put her higher if this was specifically talking about the character, yet as a rival, she kinda falls. She kinda falls really badly. The next spot in the list is one that I know that for the people that knows her is gonna be really surprised. And it's Jaina Muteki from Cinderella Gray. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait, Jaina Muteki is not the main focus of enough races, right? She's not there enough against Saguri Cap, right? Well, she is in the manga. And here is where the manga people is gonna say, wait, but she is kind of an amazing character, right? And yeah, she is. And I do not know why I put a 2. I wanted to keep the 1, sorry. She is an amazing character, but there is the thing. She is an amazing character because of what happens with her whole story related with her trainer, in which she has one of the greatest moments in the franchise period. However, as a rival, she is kinda weak, if we are being honest. The only time that she appears in the anime, she kinda like loses badly. Like, genuinely, Oguri didn't even break a sweat. And in the manga, there's other multiple races in which she appears. She appears in the last race of Oguri Cup. She is not that big of a deal there. And the actual main focus is like the second or third to last G1 that Oguri ever races, which is an actually very interesting moment and fantastic. But it's not a Jaina Muteki being a rival of Oguri Cup. It's more of a Jaina Muteki finally breaking her inner demons and finally being able to win a G1 after multiple years without one. It's more like that, and as such, I don't think that that makes her a actually genuinely great rival. She is a great character, but not a great rival. And because she doesn't oppose a true genuine threat against Oguri, and the one time that she does it is when Oguri is falling apart, I think that that keeps her at a relatively low spot on the list. The next spot in the list is gonna go to the main rival of Season 3, Satono Daimon. Satono Daimon is a cool girl and a cool character overall, but it kinda falls in a similar note to Jaina Muteki. She is very compelling as a character, way better as a character than as a rival. However, she does have certain advantages. When actually both Kitasan Black and Satono Daimon are facing each other, Satono Daimon actually manages to win against Kitasan Black in what might be considered an early stage of Kitasan Black. She is yet to be in her prime, but she is in a good stage of her career. And as such, the win of Satono Daimon is actually slightly more impactful and puts her as a very noticeable threat and something that has to be overcome by Kitasan Black to actually turn into one of the best, if not the best, horse of her own generation. Now, the whole thing is that she kinda just does one or two races in which she feels genuinely threatening, and that's about it. And it's never a true rivalry. It's kind of a rivalry, but it's more of a thing that was set up as a friendship from season 2 and then extrapolated as an also friendship in season 3 that happened to have a little bit more of beef simply because they are both racers. But they never felt like truly hating each other nor antagonizing each other at no point. And as such, I don't feel like it's a true rivalry. It's a great friendship, not a great rivalry. The next part in the list is gonna be about the third main rival of the beginning of a new era movie, Manhattan Cafe. Do you remember how early on I said that I was gonna make one technicality? Yeah, this is the one. The thing with Manhattan Cafe is that she kinda is a threat. Yes. The whole issue with Manhattan Cafe is that she is a threat. She is genuinely threatening, but at the time in which the whole story is revolving around Jungle Pocket being unable to fight her inner demons. And it's really, really a shame, because the thing that she does feels genuinely amazing. In the short span of time in which she is the actual quote-unquote main rival of a specific race, she is genuinely threatening, she is genuinely good to watch, cool to watch, and combining all of that with the fact that overall the characters in Beginning of a New Era are the consistently greatest in the whole franchise, it's very, very good despite being very short. I would put her higher if it wasn't because, as I'm saying, even though she was the main rival of a specific race, she was not the main focus of that race, simply because the main focus was the inner demons of Jungle Pocket. It's such a shame, but we have to leave it at this point in the list. The next spot in the list is gonna go to In81. For anyone that has not read anything about Cinderella Gray the manga, I'm not gonna be very specific. But In81, if you remember, appears in the last chapter of the second batch of the actual anime. In81 is supposed to be a similar story to Oguri Cap, the girl that comes from just another random region, a kinda obscure place from racehorses to come from. She looks like kind of an outsider that grows and grows in importance as every chapter passes. However, there is a couple issues with her. She is a very interesting character early on as a rival. However, at the point in which we see her as a rival for the first time is right in the middle of the true dominance of Oguri Cap. So she kinda just gets defeated like multiple times. And the times in which she is not defeated and she somehow surpasses the protagonist that is Oguri Cap, there was also another horse that was surpassing Oguri Cap, which is someone that we're gonna talk later on. So she was never the true rival of her, even if she was the main focus on multiple of them. There is one race in which this is the exception to the rule. But in that race is where the other issue falls into, and is that race, Oguri Cap also finished in third place. So the actual rival of In81 in that specific race was another character. It's amazing the work that she does in that specific race. But she doesn't do it directly against Oguri, but rather against both Oguri and another. And as such, she feels more like a surpass your own limits type of story rather than the main rival somehow finally defeating the main protagonist. It's kinda weird because that is what it is, and it feels weird because all of the chapters prior to that one in the manga are amazing at portraying In81, yet, once again, kinda like Muteki, amazing character moments, but a kinda lackluster rival that does have a fantastic race, and even though it's not against Oguri Cap, that is the reason why I'm putting it at this point in the list. In the number 13, the number of bad luck, we actually have one hell of a lucky bastard, because somehow this character managed to reach this spot, and that is Bamboo Memory. Prior to making this video, I genuinely didn't have any idea how she managed to tumble upon the middle of the list. Yet, recontextualizing everything, it kinda makes sense. Now, Bamboo Memory is kinda like the main rival for exactly one race in Cinderella Gray. If you haven't noticed by now, Cinderella Gray has a lot of rivals that kinda fit into this list. It kinda happens when you have the longest, by far, story, and as such, you will have a couple of weak ones like we see before, and then you have Bamboo Memory that is kinda weird, actually. The one time that she is the main focus, she actually loses the race. However, that is not the whole story. Bamboo Memory is actually genuinely amazing in this one race in which Oguri Caps defeats her. She kinda was in the lead the whole time. She kinda was just demolishing everyone, including Oguri Cap, and for some reason, she happens to decide that Oguri Cap needs to get a shot. Literally. And as such, they actually put this insane performance in the last 100, 200 meters of a sprinters. Actually, one of the few, if not the only G1 sprinter from Oguri Cap. It is amazing. And what she does is very good, yet she kinda just stops there. The character Bamboo Memory feels more like a pseudo comic relief type of character, but in this one race she was amazing. From multiple times onwards in which she appears, she kinda has ups and downs. She is good at some points, in others she's mediocre, in others somewhat horrendous. Yet at the end of the day, I think that she does a very solid job. Not great, solid in the others, just enough for it not to feel like just completely out of place type of representation, but combining those passable enough with that fantastic race, it manages to be enough to put her in the middle of the list. Now, for the spots 11 and 12, we have also another pseudo tie, in which two characters are very similar to each other, and those are Fujimasa March and Mejiro Ardan. Both of these characters are main rivals for a specific race against Oguri Cap at some point. Fujimasa March, as you know if you see the anime, was the main rival of the early stages of Oguri Cap's career, in the first 5 to 7 chapters of the whole show. And Mejiro Ardan is seen as a secondary rival at some point early, if I'm not mistaken, but she also has one race in which she is the main threat, and other 2 or 3 in which she is kinda threatening. Now, Mejiro Ardan has an issue, and that's why she's slightly lower, and it's that she is never a full-on threat. She is, however, a very intelligent rival. She is very cool to watch. She has all of the strategy side of things on her side, to the point that you actually believe that she has a shot at multiple different instances, despite the fact that she seems to be way weaker. And there is where the sad reality falls into. Mejiro Ardan was simply not strong enough to be a true rival. She had all of the assets in terms of intelligence, in terms of planning, at least in the anime, and specifically in the manga actually, but she wasn't just not strong enough. And if she was strong enough to at least steal one race from Oguri Cap, this girl would have probably be top 5, because she was that good at planning everything. She was amazing, but sadly she wasn't good enough. And in the case of Fujimasa March, she is basically a true genuine threat in every single instance in Kasamatsu. However, the thing that makes her not be as strong is that in Kasamatsu there's like 3 races. Kinda like it's just something that happens. There's very few races that are the spotlight, because Oguri Cap has to go and reach bigger highs or higher highs. I do not know why I say bigger. Probably because I'm not a fluent talker. She is threatening, she feels dangerous, yet you know deep down that eventually she is just gonna be a regular, whatever type of rival. Because you know that there's way, way stronger opponents moving closer and closer. And now, finally getting into the top 10, we have the second main rival of the beginning of a new era movie, and that is Danzu Flame. Danzu Flame is an interesting character early on. She basically does kinda like nothing, which is kinda weird because in beginning of a new era, basically every character does something. Yet she is kinda like this out of place character that almost does nothing until she finally gets in the race of the second crown against Jungle Pocket. In that one race, Dance of Flame is absolutely amazing. Not only Jungle Pocket is in this part of her career in which her inner demons start appearing and she has to overcome them, but is mostly thanks to Dance of Flame that she's able to overcome those demons in that specific race. The clash of Jungle Pocket and Dance of Flame is probably the actual spotlight in the whole races of Jungle Pocket from the Jungle Pocket perspective. Even though she wins the final race against Opera O and all of that, it's not the main focus, or at least in my opinion, is not the spotlight or the highlight. The highlight is the insane race with Dance of Flame, in which Dance of Flame shows that she is a fantastic rival, that sadly, once again, is not strong enough. But the fact that she manages to be even better in basically every possible regard than Mejiro Arden, and that she is an actual important character for the movie for the entirety of it, basically, either as a secondary support for Jungle Pocket or a consistent appearance in the races. It's that the reason as to why she reaches the top 10 in the list. Now, at number 9, we have what is, in my opinion, the funniest addition of this entire list. And the most unexpected, probably, Seiyan Sky at number 9. Seiyan Sky is the first true rival that we see in this entire series. And it's kinda baffling that she actually managed to make it so high in the first place. Yeah, the first season feels like it's kinda weak in a lot of different areas, but none of them are the fault of Seiyan Sky. Seiyan Sky actually manages to make a genuinely great way to demolish and defeat Special Week. To the point that it almost feels like she actually won multiple crowns in the middle of the start of the career of Special Week. I wonder why that feels like that. Oh yeah, because that actually happened. Yeah, Seiyu Sky was the reason to why Special Week pushed forward in one of the few times in which the first season of the pre-derby anime actually felt like a genuine story of this franchise. It was one of the few times that felt genuinely great, and all of that is thanks to Seiyu Sky, that also gained some points because of the fact that she is kind of like an unconventional rival. She is not the threatening with an insane aura type of rival that basically appears from second season onwards, even though technically Broy almost kinda has a little bit of an aura type of thing. But she actually does it while feeling like a chill girl. Literally. It's almost like she wants to be fishing instead of racing. I wonder why. And even with that face of not caring even a little bit, she managed to be insanely good, surprisingly. And very surprising as well for both friends, foes, anime watchers, and Special Week. And that's why I appreciate it a lot, and that's why I'm putting it so high in this list. Now, the number 8 spot in the list is kinda like a weird one. Because, yeah, I'm gonna talk about Narita Bryan. Narita Bryan is very difficult to evaluate. Basically, compared with everyone else in this entire list, she is absolutely amazing in everything of what we have seen of her. She has been the actual main focus of several different races in which Sakura Laurel does not appear. This is so far the only time in which a main rival is yet to face the main protagonist of the series. How can I even put it like that? Why do we even know that they are rivals in the first place? Well, because the whole goal of Sakura Laurel is to defeat Narita Bryan. The whole thing of Narita Bryan in this makes it a little bit like cheating compared with others, not only because she has yet to be a genuine threat to Sakura Laurel, other than the fact that she is a threat overall against everyone, and that will eventually include Sakura Laurel, but also because the things that we have seen with her are kind of like in a pseudo protagonistic role, which once again is kind of like cheating because most of these other characters are just noticeably secondaries with just one or two chapters maybe of spotlight, while Narita Brand was like an almost full arc with her being the focus. But regardless, that's why I'm not putting her higher. Because even though she probably is the most threatening and the most amazing main rival so far, she kinda feels like cheating because she is yet to even attack Sakura Laura in the first place. So, as such, even though I love her, I will have to keep her at this point in the list. Now, for number 7, and actually getting into the fantastic rivals of this franchise, we go for, in my opinion, the best rival in all of third season, Chebal Grant. You knew that this girl was coming at some point. You knew it if you have seen the show or if you have seen my video about my favorite characters. Chebal Grant is amazing. Compared with other rivals, it's a very difficult task to compare her. The closest comparison would be with Jaina Muteki. However, Jaina Muteki is very different. In the case of Jaina Muteki, the character size is what is focused. It's the whole point. She being the one that kind of finishes the era of the Cinderella Gray. In the case of Chebal Grant, it's completely different. She actually never won anything prior nor during the stay of Kitasan as a whole. She was always a constant second, third, fourth spot in every single race. She was the lurker, the important part of the story of these races, yet never the protagonist. And she was severely frustrated because of that. And that is when we finally see the race of Cheval Grant, in which she is actually the rival. She is insanely good in that one race. And compared with other characters that appear one time being important and in others it's whatever, she is someone that is constantly growing in her role. From a whatever rival to someone to take into consideration and someone that goes more and more until her big moment finally appears. In what might genuinely be the biggest high in all of the Uma Musume franchise outside of the main protagonist. Regardless, I think that the whole Chevalgran race, her whole speech, and the way in which she actually pushes forward Kitasan Black, despite the fact that Kitasan Black is obviously way stronger, and she, even with all of that in mind, manages to overcome that monster, I think that she deserves this spot this high in the list. Oh, speaking of the devil, the number 6 spot in the list is gonna go to our cute little girl, our cute daughter, Rice Shower. Yeah, Rice Shower is an interesting combination of the previous two spots that we have seen. On one hand, she technically never fully is the rival of Tokai Tejo, the actual main protagonist of the second season of the anime. Instead, she is like this main rival of Mejiro McQueen, which is the main character in that individual arc of the Autumn Tenosho. On the other hand, she is also someone that has one of the biggest highs in the whole franchise. That high, however, comes outside of a race, so I'm not gonna count it, and I'm just gonna count the races in which she appears. And in all of them, she is fantastic. In the 2 or 3 races that she appears, in 2 of them, she is absolutely amazing. Especially in the Autumn Tenosho. We see the whole arc kinda in between the face of both McQueen and the perspective of McQueen and the one of Ray Shower, and as such, she's almost a protagonist on her own, yet she's never the full on main protagonist, so that's why I'm not counting her as a protagonist, but rather a rival, and she does amazing. Even though with all of the things surrounding her, with all of her inner demons, of the fact that she doesn't want to be the Black Assassin and the main villain of the whole story, she still keeps moving forward, and she manages to defeat the other monster that is Major McQueen. In the race that probably is the actual main reason as to why Rai Shower managed to reach the Hall of Fame in the Japanese Racing Association. And a JRA in which that year of the Hall of Fame had all 3 of Tokai Tejo, Major McQueen, and Ray Shower. Probably the reason to why that season of the anime is how it is, and why the 3 of them are such a high characters in terms of importance. But yeah, regardless of what I'm saying with that, it's very commendable the thing that she did, and also very commendable when she demolishes the dreams of Miha Bourbon. She is amazing in every single instance of the first 2 races, and she also does a cameo in the race of Twin Turbo. Yeah, she's there. Look at her. Oh my god, that is a big fat boob. And because of all of that, I think that she manages to have a very great spot in the list. How high? Well, she managed to reach almost the top 5. Not quite there, though. In the top 5 in the list, for anyone that has known about this franchise, you knew that Super Creek had to be this high. Super Creek is a very interesting character. Early in the seasons of the anime, she starts appearing a little bit, mainly in the final race of Tamamo Cross career and the first time that actually Ogurika manages to defeat her. However, she was not the main rival at that point. No, it comes later on in the era of the 3 monsters of Japanese horse racing, which was Ogurika, Inari-1, and Super Creek itself. Super Creek was amazing, not only being a genuinely threatening rival, but also achieving the goals. She won multiple races against Ogurika. She managed to be the one to beat even at some point. At some point, Ogurika felt like she was more of a secondary threat rather than the main threat compared to this girl Super Creek. It was amazing what she managed to accomplish. And you know, it also helps when you have probably some of the greatest in race panels, period, in the franchise. Like, I mean, it's kinda cheating a little bit, but come on, look at how much she enhances the whole thing by just existing. It is absolutely gorgeous how they managed to portray Super Creek as this absolute demon. Despite the fact that outside of these races, she is one of the most cute characters that has ever appeared in this franchise. And with all of these threatening things that she makes, with how much Oguri even at times felt hopeless against this demon, I have to put her really, really high on the list. Now, out of all of the characters that are in the top 4, everyone knows roughly which of them they are. And the only potential thing might be which you want to put higher than the others. And as such, the 4th spot in the list will go to Major McQueen. Prior to making the video, I actually put her higher in the list. And after debating with myself like I'm a maniac because I usually talk with myself like I'm talking with another person, I decided that she had to be slightly lower. However, she is still a fantastic, amazing rival. The fact that she is one of multiple rivals that appear from second season of only 12 episodes should not deceive you. It's true something. She does not appear for the first 3 or 4 episodes as a rival of Togeteyo, but when she appears, oh my god, she's amazing. Even though she technically never fully is the rival, because they appeared in like one race against each other and Teo just gets defeated badly, like really bad. Oh my god, look at that. She was like 7th or 8th. Oh, poor girl. Probably got injured again. Oh yeah, it does, obviously. Still, she was obviously the girl to beat. And her whole thing of being the main rival of, in my opinion, the second best piece of meat of the franchise kinda helps a lot. Because she is actually working as a consistent rival outside of races as well. Unlike most of the other characters that are just friends and that's about it, she is genuinely kinda pushing forward Teo every single chapter. Even though they're still friends, she is constantly pushing her forward to the point that she is the breaking point as well of the whole story. It's also very important that she was a fantastic character in the Tenoch of Autumn that she lost against Right Shower, and even though they are neither the protagonists and both rivals, even though the protagonist is not there, yeah, both of them shine and they get extra points for both of them being not protagonists. It's kind of unfair for others, but this is my list. What are you expecting me to do? Regardless, she is actually fantastic in every instance, and that includes outside of races, in one of the few exceptions in which a character outside of a race can actually be considered a rival, and as such, she deserves this spot. However, she is barely outside of the top 3. In the third spot in the list, we have the math girl. You knew that she was gonna come. The math scientist, Agnes Tachyon. Agnes Tachyon, within the special exceptions of this entire list, is the most special of them all. Out of every single rival, she feels like the most different of them all. And that's why so many people has her as one of their favorite characters. And I cannot blame them. She is amazing as a character. However, we're talking about her as a villain or as an antagonist. And what can we say? She is a genuinely amazing antagonist. The first time that we see Jungle Pocket, she is considered to be a fantastic horse, a fantastic Uma. She is very strong, stronger than basically everyone else, except a girl in a lab coat called Agnes Tachyon, which effortlessly defeats her multiple times. She is the whole reason as to why Jungle Pocket cannot fight for the Triple Crown from the get go, even though she would have very likely been able to push a little bit further and maybe even have a shot at the actual Triple Crown if it wasn't for Agnes Tachyon, that was so far above and beyond everyone else until she wasn't there anymore. Because, yeah, the whole exception to a rule is that Agnes Tachyon is the only antagonist that manages to keep antagonizing the rival after she retires. Because, yeah, the whole story of beginning of a new era is watching Jungle Pocket fulfilling the goal of stopping her inner demons to overcome her. And you know, the inner demons were all of them made by Agnes Tachyon. In the one time that you can actually say that a character is a main villain in this story, in this whole franchise, Agnes Tachyon is the reason as to why Jungle Pocket suffers so much from basically the first third of the movie all the way up to like the last or second to last race. It is amazing, and she manages to do everything alongside those lines while just being herself. not being an enemy, just being someone that doesn't care about anyone else. And that is an amazing thing. And we also see her fulfilling her own character arc in an amazing way, but that is not gonna count because that would be actually genuine cheating. Within the rules of cheating that I have made by cheating myself, that would be more cheating than the cheating allowed by the cheater that is Almacord. But even without that, she manages to reach the top 3. But who can be higher than her? Well, you can kinda know them, but if Agnes Tekion is not in the top 2, you know damn well that these girls are truly amazing. In the number 2 spot in the list is what I consider to be the best pure rival in this entire franchise, which is Obey Your Master. Obey Your Master is the whole reason as to why I decided to put the rule of appearing in at least 2 races. Because if I put 3, at first it would be like less than half of the characters, probably. And second, because putting Obey Your Master off of this type of list would be like talking about best villains in all of anime and leaving aside some of the greatest just because. Like Johan Lieber because he is not a character from a shonen. You know that that is silly, everyone knows that that is nonsensical, and as such, I cannot allow that to happen. Obey Your Master is absolutely gorgeous in every single moment that she appears on screen. From the first time that we see her, we know that something weird is going on with her. We know that something weird is happening behind the scenes. She is not feeling authentic because she is not. This is not the real Obey Your Master. It's not that she is a fake Obey Your Master, but everything is a facade just to win the Japan Cup of 1988 in one of the greatest performances for a true rival that we have ever seen. That sadly is not in the first race the main rival of Oguri Cup, but instead of Tamamo Cross, it's still an absolutely gorgeous performance in how everything was planned. How, like, every single instance and every single character was meticulously watched from behind, from every possible angle by Obey Your Master, just to be able to give herself the final edge, to barely, just barely win her only G1. And even with that in mind, that feeling like, oh, then she's just gonna be whatever, still she manages to come back to the Japan Cup of 1989, which in my opinion is the best arc in the entirety of this franchise. And still, despite the fact of not even being the second most important character in this arc, still managing to be one of the brightest spots, period. She manages to be so threatening despite the fact that she is not the main threat. This is the only time that we have a character that, as not even the most important threat in an individual race, still manages to shine noticeably. And the in fact, in case that you do not know which is the most, is Fall Queen, that is not in this list mainly because she only appears in that one. And yeah, I had to restrain myself of putting her as an exception because she would have been first comfortably. I had to restrain. Sorry. But yeah, Obey Your Master was simply so good and so amazing that I had to put her as a number 2. But number 1 simply was inevitable. Do I even need to say it? I have said her name already like 7 different times in this video. Tamamo Cross is the best rival in this franchise. She does everything perfectly in terms of a rival. Her whole heights and her consistency might be slightly lower than the ones of Obey Your Master. However, she has the advantage of appearing in like 3 times the amount of races. She is the big wall that stops Oguri from winning her first G1 multiple times. She is amazing. And not only amazing as a rival inside all of these races, but also outside of them. She is someone that appears, even though she is kind of friendly to Oguri, she is never a full on friend until later on in the story. But instead, she is actually kind of like an antagonist also outside of the races. She is the one to beat, and she knows it. And it's amazing to watch. Every single scene, you feel like she has something different from others. Because she does have something different. And every single scene until the final race of her career feels like Oguri Cap is one step behind. And she is the reason as to why Oguri Cap truly turns into a grey monster and truly becomes one of the greatest racehorses in the history of Japan. But this is not the story of Oguri Cap. This is the story of Tamamo Cross. And Tamamo Cross deserves all of the honors for her to be, at least in my opinion, the undeniably greatest rival in all of Uma Musume. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want more content like this talking about Umas and a lot of amazing content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It will help the channel to grow and will make me know that you actually enjoy this type of content. And now, without anything else to explain, once again, I hope that you enjoyed it and see you next time. Bye bye.